Hello again, gamers. Welcome back for another episode of Grokking Battletech. I'm the board game captain, and today I'm going to be telling you how to grok the Cadaver. So I want to start by giving a big thank you to one of my regular viewers, Matthew Kelly, who requested that I cover the Cadaver in an episode of Grokking Battletech. So Matthew Kelly, this episode is for you. I also want to tell you I've got a ton of links in the description down below that you can check out at your leisure. There's a link to BoardGameCaptain.com, which is a great hub for all things Board Game Captain. There's also a link to my Teespring store if you'd like to get yourself some cool Board Game Captain merch, t-shirts, mugs, etc. And there's a link to my Patreon if you're in a position to and would like to support the channel. All right, so the Cadaver. The Cadaver is a very strangely named mech. It's one of a series of mechs that I've been doing along with the Exhumer and the Gravedigger, all of which were requested by Matthew Kelly. This is a series of mechs. Now, I do feel like the names of these mechs go from good, on the good side, the Gravedigger, through to incredibly strange on the Cadaver side. The Exhumer is in the middle. It's kind of like a little odd because why are you digging up a corpse? But the Cadaver is really odd because it sounds like you are telling the mech warrior who's getting into your mech that they're gonna die. I mean, you're basically like, hey, get in the corpse mech, you know? It's a little bit of a strange one, a little bit of a head scratcher for me. But let's have a look at what the mech is and what is it good for. There are only two variants of the Cadaver. And generally speaking, they're fairly fast, light mech with a decent amount of armor for a light mech. So the basic version of the Cadaver is the CVR-A1. Now this is an 812 movement mech. Now back in the day for Succession War or even Clan Invasion time period, 812 movement is not bad. But this is a Dark Age mech, and there are a lot of systems that allow you to speed up movement in this time period, and 812 movement really isn't enough defense to keep you alive. So luckily, it also has fairly decent armor for its size. For a 30-tonner, it's not bad. It's got 15 armor on the center torso, 11 on each side torso, 10 on the arms, 14 on the legs, and 5 and 3 on the rear torso sections, respectively. Very weak to rear torso hits. But the front armor is actually really decent for a 30-ton mech. This isn't bad at all. The combination of being able to run 12 and also have that armor makes it fairly survivable. Could be better, but fairly survivable. Now, in addition, it has 10 double heat sinks to keep it cool. And for the weapon loadout, we have an MRM-10, which is not bad. I like that, you know, being able to possibly throw out a couple of clusters with that and not having a minimum range like LRMs do. It has a Guardian ECM suite. Now, this can help to boost its survivability as well as boost the survivability of your entire lance. Because throwing this on a fairly fast mech means you can go in and you can mess with your opponent's C3 networks or their Artemis 4 systems or their Streak systems or things like that. And that's not bad. The one issue with it is that in this time period, you start to have some newer systems that the Guardian version of the ECM suite doesn't work on. There is an upgraded version, but we'll talk about that a little more when we get to the next version of the Cadaver. Then it has 2 ER medium lasers and a flamer. Now, a single flamer is not really great for causing heat on enemy mechs. If you're playing with the rules to be able to set fires, it could be useful to have a flamer on one of your mechs for setting fires and making some smoke start to spread around the map. Also, if you're playing against combined arms, it's not bad if you run into some infantry, but overall, a flamer is really just a tiny little weapon that's not going to really have much of an effect. But the 2 ER medium lasers along with the MRM-10 are not bad for coming in and harassing at medium range, you know, about 8 hexes away from your enemy, while being the mech that gets in there and kind of gets in the way with its Guardian ECM suite. For those purposes, this actually is not that bad. It could be better. I do feel like this is one of those mechs where you look at it and you're like, oh man, this would have been so good if they did this or they did that. But it's not bad. It's not bad for what it does. All right, so let's move on to the next Cadaver. The next version of the Cadaver is the CVR-T1. So now this one, the first thing it does is, and I approve of this, is it ups the speed. So they gave this Cadaver a mask system so you could get all the way up to 16 running. Now this is not enough extra hexes to cause extra difficulty to hit the Cadaver, but it is enough extra hexes to make it more maneuverable for getting in there and messing with your opponent's battle line. Now, they replaced the Guardian ECM suite with a Angel ECM suite. Now, this is the upgraded version of the ECM suite, and this is really good. So this makes it even more of a disruptor. They kept the armor and the heat sinks exactly the same. And then for the rest of the weapons, what we have is we have a rocket launcher 10. This is just a single 10-shot, similar to an MRM, you know, got the same kind of possible clusters, no minimum range. We have a light PPC. This is an upgrade from the ER medium lasers. We upgrade the flamer to an ER flamer. I'm a big meh on that. And we have a ER medium laser. Overall, when it comes to the firepower, I do feel the firepower on this one's a bit of a downgrade. Instead of the MRM 10 with multiple shots, you have a single rocket launcher 10. That's, you know, it's going to be one shot and done. You know, it's kind of like, I don't know, it's not great. I do like that we upgraded to the Angel ECM suite for this one, but overall, I actually feel like while the Angel ECM suite is good and while the mask system being in here is good, overall, I kind of feel like this one is a downgrade. This is even more missed potential for me. I wanted to go back to the first version of the Cadaver real quick, just to mention that it has 2 tons of ammo for its MRM, which gives it a ludicrous number of shots, way more than it would ever need. And that's another big head scratcher on that one. Because each ton of ammo for an MRM 10 gives you 24 shots. You only need 1 ton. And then they put a case 2 on that. When it's in the side torso, and in the side torso it's only got 7 internal structure pips. By the time you make it to the side torso, this mech's almost certainly dead anyway with its extra light fusion engine. If it loses a side torso, it's done. You are either dead or 1 turn away from being dead when you get your first crit chance on the side torso on that one, by the way. So yeah, so I do feel like there's a bit of just some head scratches on this one, especially considering these are not super cheap light mechs. There are some other options that they could have made for them to live up to better potential, if you will. So, and when I say not particularly cheap, I'm talking about the battle value. The A1 has a 962 battle value, and that is the cheaper of the two because the T1 has 1288, which is way too expensive for what it does. All right, so I decided to make not 1, not 2, but 3 custom versions of the Cadaver because there were so many different things I wanted to try out and so many different things that I wanted to see how they would look and how much battle value there would be if I were to get them on a version of the Cadaver. So first off, I did my own version of the Cadaver A1. So these mechs are all designed by my own personal mech design firm, KIWF Industries, named after the last initials of its 4 founding members, but affectionately nicknamed Kill It With Fire by its fans. Remember, don't just kill it with fire. So the first one we have here is the Cadaver CVR A1 KIWF. So what I did with this version of the Cadaver, I took off, first off, I got rid of the case 2. I didn't think that was necessary at all. And then I kept the 2 ER medium lasers, but I moved them into torso spots. I didn't like having them on the arms because I wanted to have the arms free for being able to punch. So I moved them into the left and right torso. Also, I got rid of the flamer, the MRM-10, and the 2 tons of ammo. And instead, I replaced all of that with a plasma rifle and a single ton of ammo. Now, this is a little light on ammo, but the thing is, bottom line is if you last through a full 10 turns in a game with this mech, you're probably doing pretty darn good. This is the sort of mech that if it does start causing significant issues for your enemy with its Guardian ECM suite, your opponent's going to concentrate fire on it, and being that it can only get up to 12 movement, it's not actually that hard to hit if your opponent decides to have a couple of mechs go and gang up on it. Which means, unfortunately, you could likely lose this mech mid-game at the best if your opponent is concentrating in on it. So I decided to do away with the the little safety measures that didn't really seem that effective to me, and instead concentrate in on, some bigger hole-punching weapons. The plasma rifle does 10 damage. It also adds D6 heat to its enemy, and it's also really great for those anti-infantry rolls. Now, way better, in my opinion, than the Flamer is, because unlike the Flamer, this is also quite deadly against enemy mechs. So the combination of these things, plus still having the Guardian ECM suite, I think is kind of an upgrade. Granted, it is significantly more expensive. This one goes up to $1265. So I wasn't completely happy with this custom version, which is why I kept going. So next I decided to do a version of the Cadaver T1. Now, my first version of the Cadaver T1, because spoiler alert, both of the other versions are versions of the T1, is the Cadaver CVR T1 KIWF. Now for this version, I kept its Angel ECM suite. I kept its mask because these are the things that I thought it was doing best. But for the weapons, I changed it up significantly. I changed it to a single ER small laser, 4 ER medium lasers to give it tons of firepower, and a tag. Because this seems like a mech that, while it's disrupting opponents' systems, maybe it could spot for some long-range systems on your side, spot for some semi-guided missiles or some artillery to come in and blow up the enemy. So it seemed like a good mech to put a tag on, especially since with the mask you can get up to that 16 movement. That said, I had another issue here. My other issue is that the battle value skyrocketed. I went all the way up to 1,486 battle value on this. And the high battle value with a mech that really isn't that defensible, even though, and I forgot to mention this, that the Cadaver T1, CVRT1 has reflective armor, which helps it take half damage against energy weapons. That helps to keep it alive a little better than the A1. And I did keep that reflective armor on my custom version. It's still very, very vulnerable to ballistic weapons. If it takes a single hit in most places other than the center torso from a Gauss rifle, you're getting internal structure damage. If it takes a single hit with an autocannon 20, anywhere you're taking internal structure damage. So this is, and being that, again, it doesn't really go quite that fast and it can't jump. It definitely has some vulnerabilities, and for it to be all the way up to almost 1,500 battle value, I had an issue with that. So I want to make yet one more version. This version was focused on bringing down the battle value much closer to the original, but also upping its uses. So for this version, this is the Cadaver CVRT1 KIWF2, and this version, now again, we kept the Angel ECM suite. We put on a targeting computer for its offensive weaponry. We kept on 2 ER medium lasers and the ER small laser. With the targeting computer, you can go in and crit seek for something, some big holes that have been made by some of the bigger mechs in your lance. And we added on 2 tags, 2 target acquisition gears, because I decided, you know what, I wanted to make a version that could try to tag the same mech twice, so in case it missed once, it had a backup tag, or maybe could even split fire and tag 2 different enemy mechs at once. This one actually is the one I settled on as my favorite version of the Cadaver, even though it's not a canon version, because I got the battle value all the way down to 1,269 battle value, which is actually less than the basic version of the CVRT1. And again, I managed to keep on its really cool reflective armor. So again, it is a little more defensible with that and the Angel ECM suite combined, making it a little more likely to stay alive against all of the crazy, powerful energy weapons that you have in the Jihad and Dark Age, like heavy PPCs, adding to the Clan ER PPCs of crazy energy weapons that can do 15 damage. So this is going to be the one I am going to build my lance around. This is going to be the Cadaver CVR-T1 KIWF2. Now, first, I want to give you a recommended mech warrior to pilot this custom version of the Cadaver. And for my recommended mech warrior, I'm going to recommend that we are being piloted by Durant Carlisle. Now, Durant Carlisle is a 4-cost mech warrior, so this is one that you are going to be using if you and your opponent agree to use 4-cost mech warriors. They have a gunnery skill of 2, which is incredibly accurate, and a piloting skill of 3. Now, I was a little hesitant to put something like this on such a light mech when my opponent will be able to improve the gunnery and piloting skill so much of one of their probably bigger mechs, but I have a plan with this that I think is going to make it worthwhile. And I'll talk about that more when I talk about the Lance and how this is actually intended to be used. So in this case, the abilities you get for that 4-cost mech warrior, you get combat intuition and lucky 1. So with combat intuition, you have the ability that at the end of a turn, you can say for the next round, you're going to be taking at the end of the turn a damage to your mech warrior. So you don't want to do this too often because you can fall unconscious from this. But you can then interrupt the normal turn of play to have your mech go at any time, even automatically going first if you want them to, and they can do all their move, fire, and melee before the regular order of play continues. So you can move in, mark with the tags, and fire on an enemy mech before it even gets to move and has no extra difficulty from its own movement modifiers for that turn. This is a really good thing to use in clutch turns where you need to be able to run in and tag 1 or 2 enemy mechs for incoming fire. And we'll get to that in a minute. It's also got lucky 1, so that also on occasion, when that very key tag misses, you can re-roll it once per game. I think this is a very good set of abilities for my version of the Cadaver that I'm using for this Lance. Now, what Lance am I making? All right, so for my Lance, this is obviously going to be a Dark Age Lance because I am using a Dark Age mech here. So I decided to go a little whole hog and on into the Dark Ages here. And also, I came up with an interesting idea. This Lance is actually meant to be part of a full company-on-company game, a really big all-day affair, the kind of thing where you start in the morning and don't end till well into the night, a big full-on battle. But the idea is that you would have this Lance that the whole company would be built around, and then you would have a Lance of either artillery, if you're playing artillery rules, or possibly some LRM carriers if you're not playing artillery rules. And then the saved points you have on those like long time carriages or LRM carriers, because they're not actually that expensive, you use on the third Lance, which would be a Lance of really beefed up close range mechs with tons of autocannon 10s and LBX 20 autocannons and autocannon 20s. Big armor piercing shots, and they're going to move in along with the Cadaver, who's going to be spotting for the artilleries or the LRMs, to do a 1-2 punch where they're going to punch holes in the enemy mechs, and then he's going to spot and all those either semi-guided missiles from LRMs or the artillery is going to come in and blow holes, find the crits in the mechs or blow them up with artillery spots. Now the Lance itself that I've made here to be the center of this full company-on-company fight that is the concept is a 6,000 battle value fire Lance. So the rest of the mechs in here are meant to stay back in protected positions, possibly alongside that artillery or those LRMs. They're going to hide behind buildings or canyon walls. This is meant to be a full company-on-company fight, and where you're playing in an area with a ton of terrain. So like a city tech fight, or fighting through a series of canyons or with lots of forests around, but they got places to hide. And the rest of this Lance is going to be hiding back with semi-guided missiles along with either like long tom carriages or Arrow 4 equipped catapults, or maybe even Arrow 4 equipped urban mechs, or possibly, like I said, a ton of LRM carriers. And the Cadaver will go up with the third Lance, moving in between the cover of buildings or canyons to try to isolate 1 or 2 enemy mechs at a time, come in, jump in, hit them with a bunch of armor-piercing weapons, and then spot for all these long-range semi-guided missiles and possibly artillery. So what do we got for our mechs with the long-range semi-guided missiles? So the first one we have in this Lance is the Jaeger Mech JM6-A. This is a 4-6 movement Jaeger Mech. It's got 2 autocannon 2s, 2 medium lasers, and 2 LRM-15s. Now, it's also got 2 tons of ammo with those LRM-15s, and you're just going to replace those all with semi-guided missiles. Because once you spot with the tags, those semi-guided missiles are going to be ludicrously likely to hit their targets because of the tag. It removes a whole bunch of the extra difficulty modifiers. Next, we have the biggest of the three other mechs, the one with the most LRMs. This is the longbow, LGB-12R. Now this one also has 3 jumping if you need to reposition it around the cliffs or buildings at some point. But once you find a good spot, he's going to sit still and just wait for the tags to light up an enemy to then blast away with his 4, count them, 4 LRM-15s. And now again, we are just going to replace all the LRM-15 ammo in here, which by the way is like 8 tons of LRM-15 ammo, and we're going to replace it all with semi-guided missiles to absolutely obliterate our enemy once we're able to light them up with one of our tags. And finally, we have a mech that also does a lot of LRMs, but has some close range weapons just in case something gets past our close range lance and the Cadaver on its way in and manages to try to go in and take them out, or take out your artillery, or take out your LRM carriers or something like that. This is something that could possibly intercept it a little bit. It's not fast, but if you park it right next to them, it could just walk out and unload on it. And this is the Stalker STK-3H. So first off, it has 2 LRM-20s along with 2 tons of ammo for the LRMs. Now this is not a huge amount, but with the semi-guided missiles, you're going to be able to do 6 turns of fire with those LRMs and back up your longbow and your Jaeger mech in pummeling them with all those semi-guided missiles. And then either you could go out to intercept something that's coming in, or you could go out to back up the other closer range mechs that are moving in closer, because it has 2 SRM-6s and 4 medium lasers, which makes this puppy actually fairly good at mixing it up close. It's also got a heck of a lot of armor for a LRM boat. It's got 36 armor on the center torso, 25 on the sides, 23 in the arms, and 25 on the legs. So yeah, this version of the Stalker is actually a bargain basement, only 1,624 battle value, which is why I was able to get 2 assault mechs in this lance. And it's going to have a great multi-purpose role where it's going to also use the semi-guided LRMs, but then also be kind of a bodyguard for the other units that are all firing at crazy long range. So there you go. That is my lance that I made for the Cadaver, but for my custom version of the Cadaver, because actually I like this particular custom that I used in this lance more than any of the 2 canon versions of the Cadaver. This is one of those that it kind of was a good idea, but I really felt they should have made more variants to this, because there definitely could have been more done with the Cadaver than they actually did with the Cadaver. That said, the most important thing I think they really should have upgraded was the name. I'm not a fan of the name of this mech. But let me know what you think down below. Let me know what you think of the lance and the idea I came up with for this big full-on company-on-company battle that I made this lance to be the linchpin of. And let me know what you think of this episode. Also, feel free to request another episode of Grokking Battletech on a mech I haven't covered yet. Be aware I do have a number of requests in now, so anything that is requested at the moment will not be immediate. It's going to be a little while. But thank you very much for watching. If you enjoyed this video and you'd like to see me do more like it, be sure to give it a like. Share it on all forms of social media, and if you haven't already, please subscribe to the Board Game Captain. That's Captain spelled with a K on YouTube. And until next time, game on.